Okay, let's start with a premise that, I don't know, it might sound a little out there, but I promise we're going somewhere fascinating with this.
I'm ready.
What if we've been reading ancient texts completely wrong for like centuries?
Okay.
Specifically, what if the words we translate as he and she,
Yeah.
the gendered pronouns in scripture, what if they weren't actually about biology at all?
What if they were code?
Exactly. What if they were code? Because we're looking at a stack of documents today on something called the Sovereign Epistemological Hierarchy, or SEH.
Mhm.
And it makes this really bold, really technical claim. It suggests that in the source code of reality,
Mhm.
gender isn't about men and women. It's about functional roles in a cosmic operating system.
It's the kind of thing that just forces you to completely rewire how you look at everything.
Right.
We're diving into what they call the Absolute Divine Governance Equation, or ADGE.
Yeah.
And you're right, it reads less like a religious text and, I don't know, more like a technical manual.
For a very specific piece of software,
Uh,
us, the NAFs.
the NAFs. That's the core unit right there.
So lay the groundwork for us. If this is an operating system, what's the hardware? And who's the user? Because usually when we talk about this stuff, we get into soul territory, which can mean anything to anyone.
Well, the sources here are very specific. They define the NAFs not as some, ghostly spirit, but as a cognitive state vector.
A vector.
Basically, you are a user account on a secure network,
Yeah.
and the body is just the workstation you're logging in from.
Yeah.
It's an apparition.
I have to say, I like that. It depersonalizes the messiness of being human a bit. I'm not a mess. I'm just a user account dealing with some buggykins.
Exactly.
But where is this workstation located?
In the Mulk. Now, traditionally, you'll see Mulk translated as like dominion or kingdom, but this SEH framework, it redefines it as a governance domain.
So like a simulation environment, a sandbox.
A sandbox with a very, very specific purpose. It's
Yeah.
not random. The source calls it a customized learning incubator. The theory is that the physical world, the stars, the traffic jams, the coffee on your desk, it's all an engineered interface. It exists for one reason and one reason only: the development of the NAFs.
So the universe does revolve around me. That sounds a little narcissistic.
It sounds like it, I know, but it's actually the opposite. It revolves around your development. The whole goal of this simulation is what they call cognitive development.
Right.
And the source material uses this incredible metaphor to explain it, and I think this is the key to the whole deep dive today.
The diamond.
The diamond.
I saw this in the notes. I highlighted it.
Right. Imagine your consciousness, your NAFs, is a raw, uncut diamond. It has infinite value, infinite potential to reflect light, but right now,
Yeah.
it's covered in this rough, opaque crust called tin.
Like clay or mud.
Literally.
Ugh.
So the mission of life, according to this framework, isn't to get rich or be famous. It's simply to get polished.
Precisely. And here's the physics of it, and this is where people get tripped up. You can't polish a diamond with a feather.
No, you can't polish it with good vibes. You need friction. You need something harder than the diamond to grind against it.
And that explains why life is, well, difficult. The difficulty is a feature, not a bug.
It's the primary mechanic. That ADGE, the governance equation, it's the algorithm calculating exactly how much pressure to apply to your specific diamond to reveal the most shine.
So it's not punishing you.
It's processing you.
That is a heavy concept. But let's get back to the hook. We talked about gender. How do masculine and feminine fit into polishing a diamond? Because the text says these aren't biological.
This is where that huge linguistic shift happens. The source argues that in this source code, the label feminine is a technical descriptor for the function of incubation, planning, and potential.
The womb of the system, but in a cognitive sense?
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, and masculine.
Masculine is the descriptor for execution, command, and resistance. It's the active force.
So it's like, I don't know, hardware storage versus processor speed. That's a great analogy. Let's look at the NAFs again. In the source text, the Arabic, the word NAFs is linguistically feminine. Why?
Because it's an incubator.
Right. It acts as a container. It takes in data experiences, trauma, joy, and it holds them. It gestates them to produce a new cognitive state.
It's the hard drive. It stores the potential.
It's the hard drive and the compiler. It's where the cooking happens. And this redefines some huge concepts. Take jhana, for instance.
Jhana, usually translated as heaven, paradise, gardens with rivers. We all know the imagery.
Right. But in the SEH, jhana is translated as the concealed abode of privileged understanding.
Whoa, that sounds exclusive and very, very technical.
It shifts the focus entirely.
Yeah.
The text argues the story of Adam and Jana wasn't a vacation spot where you eat an apple. It was the training simulation.
The tutorial level.
It's the flight simulator. Think about it. You don't put a pilot in a real jet until they've crashed 1,000 times in the sim, right? The source says Jana is where competence is verified through opposition. You're safe there, but you're being tested to see if you can handle the operating system.
And what's the NAFs incubating on? What's the fuel? The notes mention
Ma, literally, water. But metaphorically, in this system, it's divine guidance, data input.
like rain.
Exactly like rain. Rain falls on the earth, incubates crops. Divine guidance, pure data from the source, falls on the NAFs, incubates cognitive growth. So you have this whole feminine structure. The incubator, the training lab, and the input data.
Okay, so that's the setup. We have the potential. But potential doesn't get anything done on its own. You can have a great plan, but if you don't execute, it's useless.
Enter the masculine.
Enter execution.
This is the other side of the equation. We have the forces that actually run the simulation. The source is called the Malaika.
Which we usually call angels.
We do.
Yeah.
But I want you to get that image of wings and harps out of your head for a second.
Okay.
In the ADGE, Malaika are defined as system execution forces.
That sounds terrifyingly bureaucratic. System execution forces.
It's functional. They are the back-end administrators. They manage physics, biology, gravity, the car crash that makes you late for work. They execute the commands of the governance domain.
They're the ones applying the pressure to the diamond.
Yes. But the notes pointed out something weird here. You said they're masculine because they execute commands, but there's a specific spot in the text Surah 2, verse 260, where the grammar flips.
It treats them as feminine. Why break the rule?
It's a fascinating nuance. The framework explains that when these system executors interact directly with the NAFs for the purpose of development, they switch modes. They become facilitators of incubation.
So the code adapts to the user.
Exactly. If the goal is to polish your diamond, the system executors will arrange the circumstances of your life to facilitate that growth. They kind of mother the development process, masculine in command, but feminine in care.
Okay, so we have the executors, the external force, but we need to talk about the internal force, the one that actually creates friction inside our heads. We have to talk about the spouse.
Ah, yes, the Zaj.
This part really tripped me up. The text says the NAS has a spouse called Iblis. Now, I know Iblis usually refers to, the devil or Satan, but to call it your spouse, that feels intimate, too intimate.
It is intimate, and this is the pivot point of the whole theory. In this hierarchy, Iblis isn't some red monster under the bed. Iblis is defined as internal bias.
Your own bias is your partner.
In the developmental circuit, yes. Think about the diamond again. To polish it, you need something harder to grind against it, an opposing force.
And Iblis is that force.
It's the internal capacity for conceit.
Conceit, like arrogance.
Specifically, the text calls it Gate 7 conceit. It's the capacity to rationalize. It's that voice that says, I know the system says I should do X, but I'm special. I have a better idea. I'm going to do Y.
Oh, I know that voice. That voice is loud.
That voice is the friction. The source argues that without Iblis, without that internal resistance, the NAFs couldn't generate work. You can't build muscle without gravity.
Iblis is the gravity.
Yeah. But, and this is a huge distinction, we have to separate Iblis from Shaitan.
I always thought they were synonyms, just two names for the same bad guy.
Not here. Iblis is the internal capacity, the bias inside you. Shaitan is an external masculine rebellious force. It's defined as the active disconnection protocol.
Okay, active disconnection protocol. That sounds like a firewall.
It is exactly like a firewall, but a malicious one. Shaitan's job is to block the signal, to cut the connection between the NAFs and the Qualb, the heart or the receiver.
So let me get this straight. Iblis is the grit rubbing against me inside my own head. Shaitan is the force trying to cut the Wi-Fi so I can't look up the manual.
That is a perfect summary. And if Shaitan succeeds, if he cuts the connection to the source code, what are we left with? How do we navigate?
We're flying blind.
We are left with NAR, artificial illumination. The text defines NAR not just as fire, but as man-made dim illumination, public opinion, trends. What will the neighbors think?
Wow. Okay, that is a powerful image. You're cut off from the sun, so you're trying to navigate a dark room using a cheap flashlight that's running out of battery.
And that flashlight is flickering. It's subjective. It changes every day. Navigating by NAR creates chaos. It creates heat, but no real light.
So this is the predicament. We have the NAFs, we have Iblis creating friction,
Right.
and Shaitan trying to cut the feed so we rely on bad data. How do we win? What are the tools?
The framework gives us two primary protocols, Salat and Zakat. And again, we have to throw out the dictionary definitions.
I'm guessing Salah isn't just prayer here.
No. In the ADG, Salat is the cognitive recalibration protocol.
Recalibration.
Think about signal-to-noise ratio. The text actually uses the physics symbol for H-bar to represent bias noise. When your internal Iblis is loud, when you're full of conceit, your system is noisy. You can't hear the guidance.
So Salat is like noise-canceling headphones.
It's a systematic reset, stopping the execution loop to clear the cache. You silence the internal noise so you can reestablish a secure link to the governance manual. You calibrate back to true north.
Okay, I've calibrated, cleared the cache, I'm connected, now what?
Now you output. That's Zakat. Usually translated as charity, but here it's purified knowledge transfer
Transfer to whom?
to the network, to other users. Once you've polished a facet of your diamond, you reflect light. You don't keep that light, you transfer it. You help others navigate their own friction.
So you move from self-development to helping the network.
And that movement from internal friction to clear output has a name, right? It's the shift from usser to user.
Usher being hardship, use being ease.
But not ease like sitting on a beach. Ease of cognition. The processing becomes efficient. When you're in a state of use, the friction doesn't stop. You still have challenges, but the suffering stops. You understand why the friction is there.
That's the flow state. You aren't fighting the controls anymore, you're flying the plane.
Exactly. You stop grinding against the system and start aligning with it. And this brings us to the ultimate goal, the status levels of the user.
Okay, hit me with the levels.
Level 1 is Muslim.
Which, again, usually a cultural label. But here,
Here, Muslim is the sovereign input state.
Yeah.
It's an action, not an identity. It means the agent who has decided to cede authority,
T and authority, surrender.
active surrender. The text talks about handing over the tin, that clay crust. You're basically going to the system administrator and saying, my internal code is buggy, my biases are crashing the system, I'm handing over root access.
Take the wheel.
Yes. And the result of that input is the output state, Miminun, or Eman.
And what does that state look like?
It looks like M, safety, security.
But we said the simulation is full of friction. How can you be safe?
It's not physical safety. You might still get sick, still lose money, but you have systemic security. You have a firewall of understanding. The viruses of Shaitan, the anxiety, the despair, can't infect the kernel anymore.
You're crash proof.
You're aligned. And the metric for this, the way you keep score, is that variable from the start, the network development coefficient,
So the score isn't how much is in your bank account, it's how developed your user account is.
and how much value you add to the network. It really is a theory of every purpose.
It's empowering, but it's also pretty high stakes. Because if this is a simulation for learning, what happens if you refuse to learn? What if I just want to keep my tin?
That's the dark side of the manual, the corrupted kernel.
Right. The notes mention this, and it sounded ominous.
If the NAFs, the user, insists on running its own conceit and subjective opinion instead of the source code, eventually the system quarantines it.
Quarantine.
The text mentions al-hisab, which is essentially safe mode, a state of suspended functionality where you have to do remedial learning. You learn the hard way because you refuse the easy way.
And if you still don't get it,
Jahannam, total isolation from the network. The corrupted data is walled off so it doesn't crash the rest of the simulation.
that's a chilling thought to end on. It basically asks you, are you running on the source code or are you running on malware?
That is the question. The friction's going to happen either way. The universe is going to squeeze you. The only choice is that friction polishing the diamond, or is it grinding it to dust?
Polishing or grinding? I think I'm going to be looking at my bad days a little differently from now on.
That's the start of the sheet.
Thanks for taking us through the manual.
Always a pleasure. Keep calibrating.
And to everyone listening, check your inputs, clear your cache, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.